Some cities evolved over the years and grew slowly. Hong Kong is not one of them. It was collided into existence. Cantonese merchants, Chiu Chow families, British traders, migrants from all over Asia and beyond. All of them attracted by this harbor, all of them bringing something with them. Hong Kong remains one of the most exciting cities in Asia and is a natural layover for most. But beneath the skyline lies the real city. I've been here a lot over the years. The Philippines is just 2 hours away, but I did so as a younger soul, attracted by the neon lights, the parties, the international makeup of the city. It was easy to stay at the surface. The way I travel now is less of let's try and fit everything into one itinerary and more of let's focus on what makes a place. And that's why I'm back. I want to meet people who have made a life here, hear their perspective, understand how this city endures, how it keeps pushing the narrative and evolving yet stays so firmly planted in its traditions. Because those two things usually don't coexist. And yet in Hong Kong, they do. Cheung Hong Yuen has been running since 1967. It started as a family operation and has since been absorbed into a franchise. The cha teng was born from a workaround, a licensing tier that limited what restaurants could serve. So they invented a cuisine that worked inside the rules and then exceeded every expectation.
If you've never been in one of these, when you open the menu, you might be a little confused. You have things such as macaroni hams, pineapple buns filled with scrambled eggs. The choices are just mind-boggling. But when you try it, you're like, oh, this kind of makes sense. As someone that's from the Philippines, we're so used to like really savory, salty breakfasts with rice and broth and whatnot. So this is not too jarring. But there's still some things here that just kind of make you think of how did this become a tradition? But I love it. Food is all about adaptation, and that is 100% on display here. Think about colonial period Hong Kong when these types of Western foods are mostly available to British expatriates in expensive hotels. So obviously these ingredients became available and local Hong Kong chefs adapted them in a way that would be slightly cheaper and have more value for the working class, especially because that was a period of really strong and kind of incessant development and industrialization. So it became kind of these classic fares that till today survive, which I think is super cool. So we're gonna start first with our bowl of macaroni with chopped ham and soup. I swear, this is like, you know, when you're like really lazy to cook at home, this is the type of food that you make, but here it's considered kind of like a staple in the morning. Let's try that out. I like that you can kind of also choose whether you want something tender, slightly more chewy. It tastes like your chicken macaroni soup, but without like all the chopped up onions that are in there, or celery. It's really just the broth, the macaroni, and the ham. So next here we have our luncheon meat or spam with egg. And we've been here for about 30 minutes and the crowd has been nonstop. So it isn't really a touristy thing. It is something that people here really do enjoy eating, and people really do have their breakfast here. Okay, now we're gonna go to the strangest one, which is the pineapple bun. This one's served with corned beef, eggs, and tomatoes, which is why I ordered it. You can have this plain with just butter if you want to, obviously. I'm gonna try it actually, just the pineapple bun itself. That crust is like a buttery gray ham, sugary flavor. It's so good. Texture is so nice, and then that on top of really kind of soft pull-away bread. To serve that with corned beef and egg is wild. And eat it like a burger. I like the mix of salty and sweet, so this is right up my alley. I know you probably don't expect to start your Hong Kong eating trips in this kind of restaurant, but I suggest you give it a try. And throughout this whole episode, we're going to be showing you some new and some old favorites of Hong Kong's best food.
Let's be honest though, I'm here for the dim sum. From the cha teng's working class invention to Shunde cuisine, the foundational pillar of Cantonese cooking, Shing in North Point has been preserving this tradition since 1954. Everyone I spoke to mentioned that this is one of the most loved restaurants here. I was probably the only foreigner and the only one under 50.
Who doesn't love the chaos of a lunch rush? It is Monday. We've been here since 10:30. It's now 12 noon, and it is absolutely buzzing. At 10:30, it was already full, and I thought that was going to be its fullest, but apparently I was wrong. This place got a Michelin bib gourmand, which maybe causes part of its popularity, but if you look around, it's really mostly locals. What they're known for is Shundi cuisine, or some people call it Shun Tak from time to time. And it is probably one of the most prized Cantonese cooking styles from the region of Guangdong. And a lot of like the most elite Cantonese chefs actually go there to learn how to cook this style of cuisine. Shundi particularly is all about kind of like a light touch when it comes to seasoning, with a hyper focus on texture, making things feel really nice in your mouth. A tradition that's happened recently in Hong Kong is in dim sum restaurants particularly, they like to wash everything before getting it. So you wash your teacup, you wash your spoon, everything in boiling water, just making sure everything's nice and clean before you eat it. We're gonna start with the golden dumpling. These are massive. Oh, smart. 'Cause I was definitely gonna break that. Let's try it first without anything. Okay, I ended up breaking it. Think of it like pork shomai on steroids, filled with collagen and like gelatin. That texture is so cool and so filling. That's the first time I'm trying that. And it's so good. It's so like delicate. Something else that they're really famous for is their pork shomai with liver. I'm a huge fan of liver. Liver is usually an ingredient that's quite kind of rich and heavy. But here, because of the aromatic ginger broth that they're cooking it with, so nice and light. The good mark of a really great shomai is how the meat is ground and then bounced together so that you get kind of like really great pockets of texture. And that's exactly what you're getting here. Classic pork shomai as well with the crab roll. And I think one thing that's surprising to me, I still haven't used my soy sauce because of just how well seasoned this is. Yum. I mean, texturally, it's just so well done. Rice dumpling, stuffed pork. That's insane. Like that texture, that flavor. I used to eat a lot of Flying Lotus, taro puff each time I come to a dim sum restaurant. But this, just look how beautifully, structurally, and airy that is. It's so crisp, and you can tell that the light hand that it takes to make this in the kitchen is extremely professional. One of my favorite things to eat, rice paper, stuffed shrimp. Like everything is really nice and balanced. Texturally, it's never overwhelming. Okay, the dim sum's been amazing. Let's move on now to one of their best sellers, is the fried chicken. And just look at that color. Beautiful kind of like yellow color. And that skin is like nice and detached, kind of like fighting for its life. That's so fatty. It almost tastes like roast goose, but it's chicken. That is a good bite of food. Yum.
So if you want all of this, and I know I want to come back for it, come at lunch. But I was told that dinner is a completely different experience. Central is the part of the city most tourists are familiar with. Some people actually just stay on this side. It's convenient, a little flashy, and is a playground for good food and shopping. Cutting through it is the famous mid-levels escalator. It carries you from the wet market vendors at the bottom to the boutiques and restaurant rows of Soho further up. 800 meters. The city changes around you as you ride it. What I still find fascinating is how tight that radius is. A fine dining meal on one corner, a fruit stall in a small alley, traditional dried seafood shops that have been in the same spot for decades, all within walking distance from each other. Here, you don't really have to choose between the versions of the city.
It would be easy for a place like Hong Kong to lose its traditions, but I love that you can still go in parts of the city and it still feels very traditional and still very original. This is just an example. Like if you were in Northern Africa, you'd go to a souk with all the different spices. Here, it's the dried seafood market. Things that may seem very strange to you and I, dried bladder, dried sea cucumbers, but these are all preservation techniques from a very different time that are still preserved today. Now they form a foundation of flavor that is really important in Hong Kong style cooking, as well as Cantonese cooking, banquet style cooking. If you leave me here for a couple of months, maybe I'd figure out how to use it, but right now when I look at them, I would have no idea what to do with it.
The city was built by people from everywhere who cooked everything and fed each other across every cultural divide. That instinct is still very much alive today. I'm with Chef Mina, who runs Belon. It's been around for 10 years and is still considered one of the best meals in the city. Part of the larger Black Sheep restaurant group who have played an important role in building the culinary allure of the city, from concepts like holy phoque to imports like carbone.
So in terms of food, we are a French restaurant. So what we like to call it, it's like a sincere, modern French restaurant.
Okay.
So we are grounded in French culinary philosophy. So we use a lot of French techniques, but we try to get a more Mediterranean approach to it. I'm originally from Turkey, so I'm half Turkish,
cool.
half German.
Yeah.
So I like to bring a lot of that background from myself into it, but while still staying true to like French techniques pretty much. Yeah.
And does the menu influenced by the Hong Kong dining scene or Hong Kong
Yes.
or ingredients in general as well?
Yeah, for sure. So like Hong Kong is so central in Asia, and we're such a hub for fine dining, just even casual dining. And there's so many amazing ingredients in town that I also had to rediscover. So a lot of these things I kind of learned when I moved here first. So we definitely get influenced a lot by going to the markets, but especially the meat and fish markets. We love talking with our suppliers closely to let us know if there's anything interesting that you have. They'll shoot us a picture, we'll get one or two of them in and just do them as specials sometimes even.
And Belon's been around for how long?
10 years now. We have actually, June is our 10-year anniversary. Yeah,
That's
so
crazy.
I know.
Yeah.
I started around 5.5, 6 years ago.
Okay.
So I started kind of as a line cook, as a chef de partie.
Here as well.
Yeah, so I was briefly at the old location, and then I was part of doing the move. And then I worked as a sous chef for 2 years, and I've been the head chef now for a little over 1 year. Yeah.
Okay. So when you stepped into the head chef role, did that responsibility feel a bit heavier?
Yes. It's a lot.
Yeah.
But
for
I
sure.
tried to like keep it cool, try not to like show it. It's like fake it till you make it,
Pretty much.
Just like look confident, and then sooner or later you'll be fine. Besides that, I mean, people in Hong Kong are super open-minded.
Yeah.
They love trying new food. And I think they're genuinely interested in different cultures as well. Like
Sure.
there's a natural curiosity, and they love trying it, and they're interested in the story behind it as well.
I am so excited for this meal. One of my favorite restaurants that I used to come to a lot was Holy Food, which is literally right next to it and in the middle of bustling Central. So there's a lot going on, a lot of great restaurants. So this is the geoduck and caviar. Fancy. I mean, that's the beauty of the city, right? You can be having a really fancy meal side by side with like a really great hole-in-the-wall or classic Cantonese joint. Like geoduck is like a tender muscle with a bit of a bite and a chew to it. That mixed in with the really briny flavor of the caviar, which is so nice. This is the pigeon and foie gras torte. So like a perfect pastry shell with your pigeon chopped up, some foie gras cubes. Black truffle gastrique. That's nice. Almost kind of reminds me of adobo, I'm not kidding. And I'm a huge fan of pigeons. Not when they're alive, but when they're dead. Oh, that's good. And I can imagine how difficult it is to get it that tender and moist when it's so small and kind of like very bony. Wow, that's a good dish.
This is the one I've been excited for. Anytime I hear anything aged for a period over 2 weeks, it means that the amount of patience that it takes to develop such a dish. This is where you can kind of see the French technique in full blossom. Those clean, glassy, buttery sauces that don't break, that streak perfectly. And it's just that simple approach of just perfecting every single thing that is on the plate. Man, that's good. That's so good. I'd come back just for this. That is a masterclass. To understand Hong Kong, you have to understand that it's multiple cities that became one state. The island and Kowloon look at each other across the water like two halves of the same conversation. The island is where the money settled. Kowloon is where the people came. And in my opinion, Kowloon is where you'll find what Hong Kong can actually taste like. People often don't mention how Hong Kong became so international. Throughout the years, it became a place where many cultures converged, and you can still see that through the food. These dishes don't belong to one country. They belong to a journey and to the city that absorbed it as part of its own. This multicultural effect is in full display at nearby Islam food. It started as a street stall in 1950, catering to local Muslims, and has grown into an institution. Hong Kong's South Asian Muslim community goes back to the colonial era. Merchants, traders, workers who arrived under British rule and stayed. Apparently, the owner of this restaurant learned how to cook some of these dishes from a South Asian police officer back then.
Look at that. That was vinegar, not soy sauce. Such a clean flavor, and such a clean dumpling to start with. These are the ones that are really recommended. So this is the pan-seared beef bun. Look at that. So we got the ox tongue curry, which looks crazy. Wow, that is delicious. And they do not hold back on the spice, which is great. Look at that. Very heavy on the curry spice, which I'm not angry about. That flavor is intense. Like, this has been cooked down for a long, long time. Yummy. That with like a mound of rice would be absolutely delicious. And finally, this was the most interesting to read. So it's a spicy noodle dish. These are really tender noodles. Like, they break apart really easily with a peanut paste and nuts. That's good. That's like, like peanut butter tahini in terms of the bitterness of peanuts roasted. That paste just makes it so creamy. Wow.
I need a break, something light, and soy milk seems to be the right answer. This is one of the last traditional tofu shops in the area, family-run, generational, and founded in 1893. They use traditional stone mills to grind soybeans, and the father still makes the soy milk and tofu himself. Like many places, we are asked to wait before ordering or even filming. There's an underlying pride to how cooks constantly chase perfection and consistency. This is Virginia Chen. She grew up in Canada to parents who are both from Hong Kong. She visited a lot as a kid, but was determined to move back as an adult. She has since set up her own tour guide agency where she takes tourists around to immerse themselves in the city's culture and to make sure that everyone tastes the best local food.
When did you move back to Hong Kong?
I moved back to Hong Kong in 2012, I want to say.
And that was full time?
That was full time. I was in search of a HR job.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then did you end up working in HR here?
I did. I worked at some American banks, and then I realized maybe HR wasn't the path for me.
When you first landed back in 2012, were you seen as an outsider? Was there is there a difference in your accent? Is there?
I'm still seen as an outsider.
Really?
Now, yes.
Okay.
So when I first started my business, I would then go to a local publication and be like, oh, do you want to interview me? But then they were like, oh, we want to do a neighborhood guide, but we want someone that's been homegrown here for 10 to 15 years. And I'm like, oh, I've only lived here for 2 to 3 years at this neighborhood. And they're like,
Yeah.
And then I'll go to a more expat magazine. And then I was like, oh, I can talk about the POV of an expat. But they're like, yeah, but you speak the language and you look Chinese, so you don't really understand the true nuances of an expat. So then I've always been kind of in the middle, but you can take it as a first or a blessing, right? Because when I started food tours, maybe locals would be like, oh, why would you take people to the wet markets? Totally normal, it's a day-to-day occurrence. But I'm like, yeah, but back home,
special.
we don't have a wet market. We don't have things that are like flopping around. And
Yeah.
so I think that's really interesting. And so my tours are about bringing people to places that I find really interesting or quirky or things that I find interesting. And we like to say that we use food as a platform or the vessel for people to learn more about Hong Kong's traditions, culture, and heritage. So we use that as our platform then to teach people more about Hong Kong's culture and identity.
Because a lot of the culture can be understood through the dishes, the food,
Yeah.
and all
I
that.
feel like it's like the Philippines. Every festival revolves around food, the food they're supposed to eat. Everything is about the food.
Correct.
Dim sum for me is not about eating dim sum. It's about, Sunday morning with my grandma. So the food is secondary. It's about chatting with my grandma.
And then here, for example, it feels very strange as a grown man to be sitting down with a glass of milk. Like, I feel both on the Western perspective, but also in Philippines, you would never see a guy or anyone that's over the age of 10
Yeah.
with a full glass of milk. But here, this is very traditional.
It's very traditional because soybeans are something that they use a lot of. And I think back in the day, a lot of people, like my dad is actually lactose intolerant,
Okay.
right? Because
Most Asians,
dairy,
actually, yeah.
Yeah, because dairy wasn't a huge part of our diet, but soybean is.
It's delicious, by the way. It is very
Awesome.
comforting.
Now, if you're a true purist, what you can do is try it without the sugar first. Then the tofu flavor really comes through.
Okay.
So if you like tofu, then try it hot. I prefer it hot. If you don't love tofu, try it cold first.
Through the tours that you give, what are you trying to show people about Hong Kong?
People love to travel now, right? But also because of the internet, the world has become really homogeneous, globalized, internationalized. So when we say Chinese food, it becomes a very generic term.
Right.
So some people might then, and this isn't wrong, but some people might want to come to Hong Kong to try soup dumplings from Din Tai Fung.
Okay.
And so for me, it would be to preserve and to bring awareness to Hong Kong culture, its identity, and the foods that are like really, truly from Hong Kong.
I couldn't stand by this episode being a food guide to Hong Kong without having roast meats. I've been to many over the years, and it would be impossible for me to tell you which one is the best, because so many things factor into it. What time you go, how long the line is, and if you're getting it fresh. Hidden inside the South China Athletic Association clubhouse in Causeway Bay, the third generation of the elite Yung Ki family dynasty have seen a newfound interest in this location. Roast meats while watching surprisingly good bowlers? Why not?
First of all, why are there white chopsticks and black chopsticks?
Oh, I see. Because one is the communal, so you go and you
This is the pick
grab
one.
it.
Got it.
It really doesn't matter as long as you remember, but usually the outside is for the outside, inside is for yourself. And also we eat in the bowl.
And the bowl. Nice. Okay. So where do you want to start?
What are you most excited for? Should we do the
The char siu here.
Yeah, I
This looks pretty
Amazing.
good. So if I were to ask you to name your top 5 char siu places in Hong Kong, would you be able to? Or is that a difficult conversation to have?
That is a difficult conversation, but also in Hong Kong, quality consistency is also a thing. So it also depends on the time of day, when the char siu has come out, is it freshly out of the oven? How's the chef feeling? Did he win money the night before? You know,
Okay.
all those things.
Okay.
But there are some places that I do really like. Oh.
Wow. Chunky too. Most of the char siu I've had is very thinly sliced. Because it's like this in the Philippines, where it's like, oh, my favorite, you should try the char siu in this one place because it's the best. And they'll be like, no, you're ridiculous. That's not the best one. This is the best one.
Yeah.
Is it still very personal like that?
It's a very heated argument
Yeah.
around food. Is this the best place for milk tea? Is this the best place for goose? And then everybody will have an argument over it. I'm like, your place? No, you have to come try my place.
Okay. I also feel like when you go around, The amount of options is
Endless.
dizzying. Yeah. So you'll never be able to kind of fully map out all the Char Siu restaurants or all the, right?
You can, because we're so opinionated about food. So a lot of times Hong Kong is so saturated, so we will go and try different places. But even if I really like a char siu place, I might not visit it that often because there's so many other options out there. So people are constantly trying, and then they'll look online. There's actually Facebook groups for egg tarts, char siu, and then people will post their favorite places, people will argue about it, and then usually there's like a top 10 list, and people will go and try those places.
Okay.
People love trying food in Hong Kong and then talking about it. Oh, this is when we need our phone, right?
This is like the Hunger Games. He's presenting the sacrifice.
This is where we do the IG camera eats first thing.
Go for it.
Oh, wow.
That's incredible. I mean, there's just so much technique that goes into here. Like, it's really hard to comprehend how it's put together.
Well, actually, usually when we eat roast goose, for me, I like a really crispy skin, slightly a little bit of oil, but not too much in between, and then just very plump, succulent meat. And this actually is not your usual presentation. This is a pipa goose, so it's supposed to look like the Chinese instrument. But what that makes, what that makes is that it makes for a heartier bite, but at the same time, more intense flavor. Yes. And also, if you want good meat, if you want a good char siu, if you want a good goose, you're not going to order just the special on rice, because then you get the bits and bobs of the meat. You're going to order either a quarter, a minimum a quarter, or a half, right? Because then the meat on the top is juicier, but then the meat near the bottom, if it's a roasted goose, will be more intense in flavor because it's closer to the cavity. And so there's differences. There's dark meat, there's white meat, so you always want to try the whole gamut of flavors.
I'm so excited for this.
I would say
I've been waiting.
try it without the plum sauce roast.
Okay.
First.
What's the best part?
Do you like dark meat or do you like white
Darker
meat?
meat. Yeah.
Okay.
So
And then try it near the,
here,
yeah.
near the.
Once it's been butterflied. Ooh,
Oh,
that
that
is
looks-
juicy.
That is fatty. Mmm,
The flavor is more intense, right? Yeah.
that's good. That's. I'm happy that he made us wait to like get it. I get now where they're like, okay, you gotta shoot it when we cut it when you're ready to eat it.
Yes.
Like no waiting involved. What do you love so much about Hong Kong that's keeping you here?
I think it's because it's not where I was born and raised. So for me, it's just hearing the stories that my parents have told me about and then finding them. And then whatever I find interesting is what I showcase either on social media or on a tour. And so me, it's just like discovering more of my roots. But at the same time, I know that Hong Kong's becoming just very small. They also say like Cantonese is dying language. So for me, it's also like showcasing or bringing awareness that, hey, Hong Kong has its unique identity, it has its unique food and culture. And for me, that's kind of like my passion and mission is to do that being in Hong Kong.
On the table, we also ordered an awful noodle soup, which was so delicious. Some deep-fried eel cut up in these cross-like triangles, in a green soup that doesn't look appetizing, that tastes like health, and was probably one of my favorite things on the table that day. At night, Kowloon reveals something different. The streets that were commercial all day go social, and people eat at tables that appeared from nowhere and will be gone the next day. If you're lucky, for a few hours, you get to live alongside them. Oimansang is probably the most famous Dai Pai Dong and has literally taken over this whole block.
This is probably the part of the episode that I'm most excited about. Dai Pai Dongs literally mean big license plate in Cantonese. They were big license plates given to families before where they would be allowed to cook food and serve food on the streets of Hong Kong. They became extremely popular, especially after World War II, when families of people who were hurt during the war or who were made invalid in terms of what they could do as jobs were given these big license plates or these licenses to be able to cook really good food on the streets of Hong Kong to help them economically. These became a huge cultural integral part to the dining scene in Hong Kong. And so how it works is super cool. Two sides of two different chefs doing two different things in the hot kitchen. It is absolute chaos, and the speed at which they make the food is crazy. You can tell that they're cooking on really, really high heat, which is probably kerosene, which is why those woks get so hot. Wok hei is part of every dish. That smoky flavor has to be imparted on every dish that you have. So we're gonna check how everything's done, order on the QR code, thank God they have an English menu, and just have some really good food. We ordered a bit of everything and try to get something quite nice and varied. The energy here is absolutely mental. So you'll have your typhoon prawns, but you also have your typhoon crab. You'll have your black bean razor clams, but also black bean beef. So kind of mixing the different flavorings and sauces for the different proteins. And then you'll have some clay pot dishes as well, lots of vegetables. It's just such a great experience. So let's try everything. So I saw a lot of people ordering the beef and potatoes, so I said, why not? So everything's nice and dry here. Beef is probably velveted, deep fried. That velveted, deep fried beef, great texture. Now here we have the snake beans with our minced pork, black bean sauce. The food also is blisteringly fast. And you're kind of like further up on the Kowloon side. So this isn't close for a lot of people. But this does kind of give you that real Asia experience. You know, when people say, oh, you know, I want to go to Asia or Southeast Asia and experience real street food. This is kind of what people are picturing. Everything made really fresh and fast. That is so good. Like in Dai Pai Dongs, the vegetables are always going to be amazing because you know that wok is so hot. And so the vegetables are kissing the wok when it's on the wok and not being tossed up for like 40 seconds. So they retain all their flavor, crunchiness, everything. Now we'll go to the more interesting dishes. I had to get like simple soy noodles, which I haven't had yet. That's always a classic comforting good. You can picture yourself here with all your friends having such a great night. The food is really good value. The drinks are cheap. Razor clams, look at that. Comes right off. Those are so delicate. Like it tastes like, in the Philippines we have diwal, which was kind of similar to that. But it's like any other clam, but just in that long shape. So it's nice and chewy. And that sauce is really, really spicy, which is quite nice.
This was one of my favorite meals of the trip, and kind of made me wish I had friends to share it with. Kowloon is similarly as popular as the Hong Kong side, and is seen as more authentic, but also has its own high-end shopping districts. But when you're seated at a tight alley table, you can kind of forget about all of that for the duration of the meal. And I think that's special. Food and travel are meant to transport you, disorient you even. You can almost feel like you're dining side by side with the generations that came before you. The version of Hong Kong most people know starts at the harbor and ends at the peak. High-rises, neon, crowds, the relentless forward motion of a city that never really stops. A quiet romanticism fuels all of it. I mean, just watch any Wong Kar-wai movie. There is still a love for all things old, institutions that have proven their worth, and Spring Moon is one of them.
嘉良道最有名嘅菜式應該係屬於叉燒、金錢雞、龍蝦意食啦。咁啊，嘉良樓炒飯同埋佢嗰個點心啦。咁點心佢可能有三鮮餃啊、金魚餃啊，咁啊或者係鮑魚酥啊個。其實我哋粵菜講求第一時間我哋講求我哋個溫度先啦。咁第二我哋講求味道啦，同埋第三我哋講求嘅我哋嘅節奏同埋出品嘅次序。咁可能會有時會加插少少嘅驚喜，咁已經係足夠。
Ooh, this looks so pretty. I was saying when I walked in here, the first thing that kind of struck me was the decor. I love this kind of like 1920s style. Just how everything's made out of wood, which automatically brings such a richness to the experience in terms of the smell, in terms of the sound when you walk. And that for me is the hallmark of a great restaurant, and a restaurant that has a lot of experience and that's been here for a while, is to have these little things, specifically when it comes to the architecture and design, that kind of make you feel that way, which is great. I'm gonna go straight for the foie gras. That looks incredible. Wow. You got that caramelized meat, like little burger on top. The mushroom is perfectly cooked, but still has like a nice chew and pull to it. And the foie gras, obviously, just makes everything taste delicious.
Now we have the tomato. Just look how precious and how like, you can tell there's a lot of thought and care that comes into creating a dish like this. Let's give that a try. I feel like bad for ruining this. I did not expect that at all. It just tastes like a larger tomato because the jelly and the tomato have a very similar texture, and it's just really fresh and really refreshing, not heavy at all, which is a really cool contrast with the foie gras, because the foie gras you get sweetness, you get fattiness, and then that with the jelly and the tomato, just that balance of acidity and kind of like light and heavy, which is really nice. And the cracker is just a really cool textural touch. Yum. I mean, if this is a start, it's gonna be a good meal. I always feel bad when I eat cute little things. So we have a koi fish dumpling here, which looks really cool. Codfish covered in what looks to be crispy quinoa in a Sichuan sauce. Now let's try this. It's so cute, I can't. Koi fish dumpling. And it moves too, because my chopstick skills are terrible, right? Went right for its face. Prawn meat in there with the codfish. Such a cool combination of seafood.
其實我哋不嬲都係保持我哋嘅傳統為基底嘅。咁譬如我哋炆燉口蒸煮炸，我哋粵菜嘅一定要保持，又唔可以偏得太過遠嘅。少少創新我哋會有嘅，最弊就唔可以太過有創新嗰度。
You got a Superman flying lobster too. Look at him. Okay, let's try this. Ooh, there's like, I didn't expect that. Let's try this first. This is the wok fried one. This is not gonna be easy to get with chopsticks. Yeah, cut that part out. Okay. Textures there are insane. Lobster perfectly cooked. Like that temperature is just where it needs to be, where it's still really juicy. You can taste the freshness.
其實XO 醬喺嘉麟樓開始嗰陣時，1986年嗰陣時已經開始有已經開始有 XO 醬㗎啦，係啦。咁 XO 醬最早期係應該係屬於係潮州嘅海鮮醬演變而成啦，跟住我哋再會加插其他譬如辣椒啊或者蝦子啊頂級嘅元素喺入邊咯。
Here we have their signature fried rice with the XO sauce. Fun fact, XO sauce is something I cook with a lot, and I had no idea until we were researching about Spring Moon that XO sauce was actually developed here, which is something you can definitely boast about because XO sauce is probably one of the most famous condiments nowadays. That is so seafood forward, which is great. You kind of get really that beautiful flavor of the dried seafood. And the rice is like not touching each other at all. Like the rice is perfectly fried in a sense that every single grain is detached from each other. Wow. I think to serve fried rice as a dish is a statement in itself. Most places would put fried rice as a side dish or anything like that to put it front and center, no hiding. This is a dish. Just means that the kitchen's very confident about their fried rice.
The question I always get about Hong Kong is it still the same? And I think that's a wrong question. Hong Kong has never been the same. It's always been changing, always absorbing, always building on what came before. The dried seafood was here before the skyscrapers. The really good Cantonese eateries arrived before the Michelin stars. What makes this city extraordinary is not that it preserved itself unchanged. It's that it kept building layer by layer, and somehow all the layers are still here. Watch out for our next episode as we explore the greener side of Hong Kong and take you to the places that most people don't seek out yet.